Tonight's going to be a forum with our District 31 state representatives, and you'll get to hear their views on several questions. They're going to be the questions are going to be moderated by Chris Evans from Guthrie Newspaper, and we always start our meetings off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right. If you would just remain standing while we pray. Lord, we thank you for all of your blessings. We thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for letting us live in a country that gives us free exercise of speech and the rights to defend ourselves. And we know that you raise up kings and princes and put them down as well. We just ask that your will be done, and that you keep everybody safe in this meeting. And we ask you to bless this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. I'd like to introduce the president of Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, Tom Spencer. Yeah.
Do what?
You don't even need a step.
Oh, yeah, we'll be all right. I'm going to be very short because I want to make sure we focus on tonight's event. And there he is, just tripping over everything real quick. But beforehand, I'm going to embarrass this one lady real quick. Liza Greevy is right here on the front row from for a friend of mine right there. Primary grassroots crimes for sure. But like I say, with the events that have gone on this week, I'm not even going to go over legislation that took place this year. We had a good year. It could have been a lot better, but we've had a good year getting some things accomplished. But in this last few days, it's pretty obvious your Second Amendment rights is under assault and under attack from the national level all the way down to the state level. And today, what was released today, the Democrats released the fact that they want to repeal 12 years of effort that OK2A has put in. Can you guys hear me okay? Is that all right? Yeah, hear me? Okay. So they're wanting to repeal our nation's first anti-red flag law that was passed here in Oklahoma. They want to repeal permitless carry, which is constitutional carry, that was passed in 2019. They want to repeal carry in public parks. They make sure there is a red flag law. They want to add waiting periods. I assume that is to gun purchases. And they want to raise the minimum age to 21 to buy a firearm. And so I want to make it real clear in Oklahoma that we're going to address this. And because since their efforts to tear up the Constitution, I'm going to go ahead and tear up their efforts to try to repeal our rights, because it's not going to happen in this state. We will not. And again, OK2A, we are not merely a Second Amendment group, a gun group. We are a liberty group that realizes it may take guns to maintain that liberty. And we're going to make sure we hold through, because if you don't protect the First Amendment, it chisels at the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment protects all of the rest of the Constitution. So we were going to work hard to make sure that that is taken care of and addressed. So I'm going to go ahead and carry on, or get off here so we can go on. Chris, thank you so much. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes. Terry Thompson right here on the front row. Anyone that's interested, he's a rock star. Talked about being a coordinator, wants to be a coordinator in the state of Oklahoma. Come and talk to him, because this is exactly how we are getting things accomplished in this state. I assure you, legislators, either they respect us or they hate us, but the one thing is for sure, they still respect us. Because the fact is, nothing personal. If you don't follow the Constitution, we'll find someone that will. We'll just go find someone that will. And second off, U.S. Law Shield is in the house. Josh Reel back there. If you carry a firearm, that's right, Josh. If you carry a firearm, you need to make sure you have a U.S. Law Shield or someone in your pocket that's ready to represent you if you're in a self-defense act, involved in a self-defense act. So I want to make sure that you guys go back and see him. If you don't have it, don't leave tonight without it. And also, I'll make one last plea. If you're not a member of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, I have no idea what you're waiting on. Who else is keeping an eye on these things for you? Not just your gun rights, but who here would have absolutely loved, supported that your legislator, if they voted for illegal aliens being able to obtain an Oklahoma driver's license? Would you have known if we had not brought it to your attention? Yeah, because after the word illegal, everything else doesn't count. Nothing else matters as far as I'm concerned. So folks, again, I want to thank these folks here tonight for showing up. This is very important. You're seeing Liberty at its best. We want to make sure we advance the best people forward, and this is exactly how I do it, so you can hear from them. So Mr. Evans, I appreciate it, and you can take over from there.
Yeah, thank you, Thank you, Don. My name is Chris Evans, and the organizers told me that Don Spencer would talk first, and he'd keep it under 5 minutes. I started laughing. Don Spencer, 5 minutes and OK two-way. But he did a good job. Got the illegal aliens, kind of got me nervous there for a little bit. But appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Great crowd here this evening to listen to our candidates. And I would like to introduce our candidates first. First off, right here is Mr. Collin Duel. Ms. Karmin Grider. And we appreciate them showing up. We reached out multiple times for Logan Trainer to be here, but did not meet those requests and did not show up tonight. But we do appreciate you guys showing up. It's very important for these types of events to have so we can understand your thoughts and ideas moving forward. We had a fancy coin flip and then a drawing. Karmin, she finished second, right? 1 second, but she'll open up with an opening statement. Then Collin will have an opening statement, and then we'll get into our questions. First, Karmin.
I want to say thank you to OK2A for holding this event. I think it's going to be a fun night. My name is Karmin Grider. I'm a Republican running for State House District 31. I'm a constitutional, conservative, Christian patriot. And what I can tell you now is we're not in another political cycle. It's not Republicans versus Democrats anymore. It's the elite and the people and the pawns in between that they're already controlling. And so what we're up against, not just in the nation, but also in Oklahoma, even with the Republican legislature, is the establishment. And those are the ones that are taking the funds from the entities that are undermining our constitutional republic. They're the lobbyists, the PACs, the special interests, the corporations, the global corporations. They're the ones that are contributing to these rhinos campaigns. But I'm here to tell you that I'm not going to take that money. I've taken the pledge. I'm not taking it as a candidate, and I'm not going to take it as your legislature. That way you don't have to question my integrity and my loyalty and who I serve, because it's about the people, not the elite. And if we're going to put a stronghold around Oklahoma and keep the feds out, then we got to say no to all the money that controls the federal government coming in and everything and all the candidates that are tied to it, because everybody knows that that money, no matter where it comes from, it's going to have a hold and it's going to have a sway. And when it comes down to the right vote that's for you or for these global corporations or bureaucracies, you're not going to question where I stand. It's for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Karmin. And now Collin Duel.
Thank OK2A, Marvin Goodman, and Sterling, and Don Spencer for hosting this, and thanks Chris Evans and the Guthrie News page for moderating and streaming, or recording at least. I'm a conservative Republican, and I want to take this time to introduce myself to you. I see a lot of faces that I have not had the opportunity to meet, and some faces that I do know. I want to thank my family and some of my friends for coming to this. My wife's over there. She's with our 9-week-old son, so if he acts up, they might have to sneak out. Don't hold it against me. I was born and raised here in this district, grew up going to Guthrie schools. After high school, at the age of 19, I enlisted in the United States Army. I served for about 4.5 years in a special operations unit and as a team leader on about 4 deployments to Afghanistan, all of them being combat deployments. It was during my service where I learned duty and respect for my country and my patriotism. After my service, I used the GI Bill to go to college. I went to the University of Oklahoma, where I got a degree in international security studies, and I minored in Middle Eastern studies. I didn't know if I was going to go back into the service or do something else overseas. But got accepted to law school, went to law school, and then moved right back here and opened up my own practice. My wife, an 11-year-old daughter, and 9-week-old son, we live here in Guthrie. And most of my adult life, I've been serving one way or another. first in the military and now as a local attorney helping out, fixing local problems, or at least trying to. And I want to continue that service, continue that attitude of service by serving as a state representative for House District 31. That's what I want to do, and I just want to advance conservative values and preserve those traditional Oklahoma values that we have here in the state and were instilled in me growing up in this very district. Thank you.
I got 80 great questions tonight. We'll be out here by 11 p.m. I promise. No, I know that Oklahoma State Cowgirls play in here at 8:30, so we'll respect your time. See if we can get those Cowgirls a victory tonight. Our first question, we'll go with Collin, and our first question of the evening is, why do you want to be elected as the House District 31 representative?
Well, if you have any questions, I'll be answering yes or no, but I can't answer yes or no to that question. Like I kind of said in my opening, I have 2 children, and we're raising them here in this district and here in Oklahoma, and I want to get down to the state capitol and just preserve those traditional values. We see this current federal administration taking this country down a path that's frightening. It's inconsistent with the values that I served and fought for over 4 years. I'm hoping to get elected, earn your vote, get elected, go down to the state capitol, and make sure Oklahoma doesn't get tugged along down that path the country's on. I'm hoping to turn around the country too, but let's start with House District 31. I want to make sure that the different entities who are threatening our way of life, that we're able to keep them out and don't let them secure a foothold here in this state or in this District 31. That's why I'm
running. He said it. It's the traditional values, and you're not wrong on that. Well, what I plan to do, why I want to get elected, is because there's a larger picture also, and that is how do we protect those traditional values. And where I see myself is not just a representative, but as a facilitator. Because in this country, it's the people who govern, right? And that's by way of a constitutional republic where we choose to elect those in office based on who we think aligns with us the most. But it is the people's voice. And so what I have planned to do is to get as many as I can on a list of communication and to keep you all informed of what's going on, directly communicating with you weekly, sending you my voting record, sending you legislation that you're interested in, whether it pertains to a field of expertise that you have so you can give me advice and counsel or feedback, and also areas of interest, because I mean, the people who are passionate, they do their research when it's something that they care about. And so I plan to be a facilitator for your voice so that we can restore the authority back to the consent of the governed. And I think that it's going to be a process, but it's up to me to communicate with you to point your voice in the direction that you want it to go. And so if there's somebody that's holding up a bill like what he talked about, that's allowing some liberal entity or woke enterprise into our country, state, wish you could do it for country, then I can easily email 3,000 people or text message 3,000 people, hey, you don't like that bill? Well, this rep, and this rep are the ones holding it up. Here's your number. You let them know how you feel, because I'm one of 120, and I can only carry the ball so far. But you 3,000 people, you're the ones that are actually in charge, so you tell them what you think, and then I'm going to vote the right way. But I got to do what I can do to put you in position and equip and empower you to get your voice back. I've talked with so many people who are just like, what can I do? How can I be engaged? Well, you can do your research, but also if you had someone who was directing your voice to where you can make it known, just imagine what we can do as a district. And if people in other districts find out about this and they say, well, how come my representative isn't sending me their voting record? How come I don't know what's going on in my district? Well, my representative doesn't talk to me. I only hear him every 2 years and through mailers. Just imagine the kind of pressure that's going to put on the establishment. And I want to see it done. That's why I'm running, because there is a lot more going on in this time. It's a historical time to be alive. And that's why I want to get in there, is so that we can restore it back to what it was founded and intended to be, a people governed by each other.
Our next question, Karmin will go first on this one. If elected, what would be the first bill you would want passed into law?
There are two scenarios. If they did not defund the ERIC system when it comes to putting our poll books online, that would be number one. I think that is a huge mistake. We need to keep our poll books on paper and in the dark till after the election. I'll clap for that one. There's also another piece of legislation that I would author in the event they did defund it. I haven't followed up on that. It would be to repeal the pay-by-the-mile tax project. That's probably something you all don't know about, unless you're Terry, and you do. But that is a bill that was not passed this session, but in the previous session, that has accepted funds from Joe Biden's infrastructure plan to study what it would be like and what it would take and how to market a pay-by-the-mile tax program here in Oklahoma. And that was passed by a Republican legislature.
Yep.
And if you don't know about it, that's a sign. So I would repeal that in the event they had already defunded the ERIC system.
Yes.
I'll expand on that too a little bit. The pay-by-the-mile system.
Get closer to the mic.
Here you go. You can hear me, sorry. I'll expand on that a little bit, the pay-by-a-mile system, and why that's scary. Is the state government wants to collect data on where you drive and how far you drive. And I don't know about you all, but I don't appreciate the government collecting my data based on where I'm going, when I'm going, and then, you know, potentially sharing that with the federal government. So definitely agree with her on that. If I'm elected, I'll be a freshman legislator. I realize that there are probably some limitations that I would have once I got down there. So I have realistic expectations, but one thing that I would like to see done, I think in 2021, if I remember the House bill number right, I might be wrong, but I think it's 1236, the state legislature created an ability for the legislators to analyze federal, whether it's executive orders, federal laws, things, federal policy, that's trying to force the state to comply and decide whether or not those were constitutional and submit it to the Attorney General to say, if these are not constitutional, Oklahoma doesn't have to comply. So I would piggyback off that bill because federal overreach, it's not anything new. It's been happening for a long time. And I think that we should look into the past at those steps that the federal government has taken to encroach on our police powers and push back against those. So basically that's what I would try and accomplish.
Thank you, Collin. Our next question, we'll let Collin go first on this one. What do you believe is the most important local community issue that needs to be addressed?
Local community, that's a good question. I'm going to say the most important local community issue that we face is also faced by districts throughout the state and other states for that matter. It's rearing our children in education. I think that we need to make sure that our children are getting adequate, solid education, whether it's public school, private school, or homeschool, and that parents should have appropriate oversight of that education and make sure that they know and fully understand what's being put out to their children, whether it's being taught or just pushed out towards them. I think that that's the most important issue in this community, but across the nation, really. We have seen entities the past few years try and target our children, and they're our most valuable resource and most vulnerable as well. They're going to be the individuals that are leading the state, this country years from now, so we need to make sure we protect them, and I think that we should pour into the education system.
The issues that I hear at the door are, number one, Joe Biden and his regime, which is actually Barack Obama, but that's not local, and roads and bridges, and like he said, education. And so I don't really disagree with what he said about that. What I think we can do is audit the state education department and then audit the districts and see their budgeting. I believe in full-on transparency. And same thing with the Roads and Bridges Transportation Fund. So I think actually if you get down to it, the thing that connects the two is transparency. And so if you really get to the heart of what the district and the local community wants, it is just simply more transparency and more power to them, just like parents in their education system. And just like, you know, the roads that have been sitting there for, I think somebody said 15 years, and we don't get the funds for it, well, then let's make sure that all motor vehicle taxes go to the roads. You know, where is the money going? Why are we not able to do what we need to do? And he and I are out there driving these roads. We know what they're like. And where's the funding coming from? Well, those are the questions that we need to get to the bottom of. And so when it comes to local issues, those two things are at the heart, and what the root is a lack of transparency. So we got to expose what's going on. If there is anything negative or malicious, we got to figure it out, you know, because kids are being indoctrinated, and our emergency vehicles are having a hard time getting through to these rural areas, you know. And those are, whether that's a life at stake or someone who's going to be leading our country in the future, they're both poor investments in the here and now. But how are they going to bite us? I mean, we're going to find out when it's too late, right? So we might as well get to the bottom of it now and increase transparency.
Thank you. You guys kind of touch on the next couple of questions that we'll have, but see if go a little bit deeper into this. We'll start with education. We've seen a various number of topics at the legislature level when it comes to education here in the state of Oklahoma, from private schools, to charter schools, to public schools, and vouchers. Can you please share with us your views on education and what actions you will seek? And Karmin, you go first.
Oh, sorry.
All right, question for both of us.
Put you in the principal's office already. All right. We've seen various number of topics from the legislature level when it comes to education here in the state of Oklahoma, from private schools to charter schools to public schools and vouchers. Can you please share with us your views on education and what actions you will seek?
This is a very controversial issue because while a lot of Republicans are for school choice, it's the how that we have a large disagreement on. So I'm going to tell you what I believe, and I'm going to tell you that there is a large degree of openness to input, and also tell you that I'm not in the education sector. I was a substitute teacher and an adjunct coach in Oklahoma City Public School District, and that was when I was getting my master's degree, 7 years ago? And so I can only imagine where it's come to now, but I am able to empathize with teachers a lot at the door. And so my belief in how to improve our education system comes from kind of how our country was founded in the sense of a free market system. I believe in competition. You're seeing that on the stage when, you know, you're going to vote for who you believe is the best candidate. It's going to, where the cream of the crop rises to the top, right? Well, why are we not allowing that to take place in our education system and in our public schools?
Yeah.
And while the vouchers were a pretty close idea, I don't think that you should have to give your money to the government and then they can tell you, here's where you can input it, here's where you can put it, and here's where you can put it. You should just be able to keep it and decide where you want to put it. And so then that would position a bunch of schools, whether they're public, private, or Montessori's, or homeschool co-ops, or what have you, or holy cow, if teachers became entrepreneurs and created something new, can you imagine that? But it increases the competition, which increases the productivity, right, and the quality, because then you're going to be putting them, you know, in obviously competition with each other. So where I stand on that is I just think you should be able to keep that money and put it where you believe that it should go, because it's your investment and your kids, and you shouldn't have to apply to get it back. If you disagree with your children being indoctrinated or someone teaching them that there's 97 genders or what have you. So that's where I stand.
She's certainly right. You're certainly right that the how to accomplish it, I'm just going to be honest, I don't know how we should accomplish it. But I will tell you this, is that education is fundamentally a part of rearing children, and it should be the parents' not only responsibility but right to rear their children as they see fit. And so that means determining where your child goes to school, whether it's public, private, charter, homeschool. That should be the parents' decision, and we need to facilitate their ability to do that. If that means through funding or protecting the right of homeschoolers here in Oklahoma, we're a good state for that, and we need to continue that. So as far as, like she said, as far as how to accomplish that, I can't tell you. I don't have the answer. The current legislature does not have the answer. They couldn't come to it. So I do support parents' right to choose where they go to school, and we should facilitate that, and I'll do so if I get in office.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll let Collin begin with this one. Oklahomans and people across the nation are struggling and beyond frustrated with inflation. While one vote in the House will not have an immediate impact, please share what you would like to happen to help alleviate this problem.
This must be another one Karmin hit on too. I'm a huge limited government free market guy. The market will adjust itself in times like this if the government will allow it. So pull the government out of the market and let the people go to work. It's really that simple, and I don't know how to stretch that out into a longer answer. Less government, more freedom.
He's right. And I want to say there's another aspect of this that I'm going to hit on. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who say, Karmin, I'm on a fixed income. I get X amount of dollars from Social Security and that's it. Groceries have gone up, gas has gone up, property value has gone up. Because we have an influx of people moving in from blue states who have higher costs of living, driving property value up, right? Guess what else drives up along with property value? Property taxes. And so for these people on fixed income, I think I spoke with someone one time, he had an idea, something to do with the Homestead Act. I can't remember the specifics, but when you get to a certain age, your taxes stop there. And I think that that's something that your property taxes, wherever it's at that place, they don't rise up. And I think that that's something that we can take a look at, because the retired are hurting. And there are things going on with pensions that don't pertain to this question. They might come up later that I could share with you. But we've got to figure out a way to come at this from every angle, like the market, but also a way that actually is also more property ownership and less renting the property from the government. And I think if we can freeze that to an extent for the retired or a certain age from increasing, that would help out a tremendous group of people that are often unseen and not heard from. So.
Thank you. And Karmin, you kind of touched on our next question here a little bit, but if you want to expand or just be short with it, that's fine too. Logan County and several other Oklahoma counties continue to search for more funding for roads and bridges. Can you please share with your understanding of county funding and your vision moving forward? We have dirt roads and bridges, a lot of them in District 3. District 1 has a lot of people, a lot of asphalt, a lot of traffic. Your thoughts on the funding?
My initial thought is abolish the Oklahoma Turnpike Association, but that's all right. We might get there at some point. How many turnpikes have they promised us were going to come back to us that we're still paying for, and then they want new ones? Side note. But like I said earlier, we need to ensure that all motor vehicle taxes go to roads. And I talked about auditing and transparency, and that's a big one. But I also, with redistricting and the census that went out, and Marvin, you can correct me on this, I'm open for feedback, but dollars come from population, right? And if the census went out, then that formula that appropriates would change. Is that right? Something along those lines. So we need to make sure that every opportunity that we have, that our taxpayer money is coming back to us here in Logan County, that we're not missing out on anything. And it just goes back to transparency, and I think auditing is the way to go to do that. So.
Like I said at the question before, very limited government is what I believe in. Roads and bridges, that's a core function of government. I'll give that to state government. They can take care of that. You know, my understanding of how the funding is appropriated is really fuzzy. And Marvin, we would look to you on this because you're the county commissioner. And that brings up another point, is it's important for your state legislators to develop a relationship with the county commissioners in order to try and appropriate as much funds as possible. And the acronym escapes me, but the CIRB, Roads and Bridges Fund, and how much money is appropriated into that. We need to understand how that happens, get as much money in it as possible, and then work with the county commissioners to make sure that the roads and bridges are being taken care of. But I'll go back to, that's a core function of government, and it's an important one.
All right, our next series of questions, you can go as short as you like, but I think you guys agree on a lot of them. But this one's for Collin first. Do you support legislation clarifying that the duly elected sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the county in which she or he is elected? And why do you support that?
I do support that, and I'll tell you why. The county sheriff as an office is kind of a unique office. He's not accountable to anybody other than his constituents and his voters. He doesn't have a board that he reports to, and there's no chief above him or organization who can tell him what to do. And in addition to that, it's a, legally speaking, it's a common law position, meaning that the position of sheriff came even before our Constitution, and we get that from way back. So I believe that there was a bill proposed last cycle. I think it was House Bill 3609 that said the county sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement official in the county, and the district attorney is the highest ranking law enforcement official in their district. And yeah, I support that.
I support that too. And I can tell you that in this county, Sheriff Damon Devereaux is one of the best sheriffs Oklahoma ever seen. So, with all that he just shared, the technical side of it, we've got a man who will stand up to the federal agents if they ever come to try and illegally confiscate our guns. And so I think it is extremely critical that we support him, but also we support like-minded sheriffs, because that's what they are. They are that. And I'm glad for that, and I'm glad for Damon Devereaux. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, we'll let Karmin lead this one off. Do you support legislation prohibiting a biological male from competing in female sports programs, regardless of whether they have undergone or undergoing gender reassignment therapy / surgery?
It was the support.
Do you support legislation prohibiting?
Yes, of course I do. I played sports in high school, and I played at a small college before I went to OU. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be a female athlete nowadays, because nobody's standing up for them. And I can tell you, watching William Thomas compete against women, I've played against the boys all my life, and at the community center in basketball, playing football, and as much as I was able to compete with them, there was always a line where they were stronger and quicker and taller and could jump higher. So I would always have to adjust my game. But for that to be in women's sport is an atrocity, and I think no matter which way you slice it, the transgender movement hurts women, and I'm not a feminist by any means. No, not this way of feminism. But it hurts women. It's either women trying to leave the sex and becoming, which is, kind of sad. Or it's men trying to come in and take positions in athletics or scholarships or job opportunities that are for women. And I can't believe that these groups, even the liberal groups, are not standing up against it. And now they're saying that men can have babies and men can have abortions, which is ironic because one camp over here says that if you're a man, you can't say what you feel about the life of a baby. But now, can they? Because they can get pregnant? No, it doesn't make sense, but it's also not intended to. And so we got to do everything that we can to protect opportunities for girls like I was. And because you get a scholarship, you get an athletic scholarship to a university, you get those academics that come along with it, you get that degree, you get that key that will allow you to go in other areas of society that if you hadn't had it, then you wouldn't be able to go there. And you put in the work. I remember tour days, I mean, holy cow, and these women are doing it, and now the door is wide open for the effort, every ounce of sweat that they put in to getting that degree, whether it's through athletics or studying, is now able to just, just be wiped away by one. And it's starting to happen. He wasn't even the only swimmer. So of course that's something that I'm against, and I have a personal stake in it because I am where I am because of my athletic history in large part. And I'm actually pretty passionate about that. Got a little steamed up, but anyway, yeah, I am vehemently against it.
I have a 11-year-old daughter who she got pretty big into volleyball this past summer, not this upcoming summer, but we traveled the state of Oklahoma going and watching her play and taking her to practice and practicing multiple times a week, and she's only 11. I can't imagine, first off, I'm against men playing against women in organized sports. But I cannot imagine, there's a multiple set of issues if a male is on the team with a female. And there's two sets. We'll go over here. Let's say that they're on the same team. So there's locker room issues, bathroom issues. We stayed in hotels when we would travel to play. Intimate setting issues. I would never support a teenager or someone in high school playing on the same team as someone of the opposite sex and sharing those environments. So that's one set of issue. And we'll go ahead and say she's still on the same team. She's having to play against this guy to try and earn her spot on the volleyball team. And I'm just using this as a hypothetical. It goes across the board. It can be basketball, you name it. She has to earn her spot and beat out a guy for that position. So, potentially she doesn't get to play. Not only that, she's out there competing for, like Karmin said, a scholarship. If she doesn't get to play, never sees court time, that scholarship will never be available, and it's because we allow this man to play with her. Second side of the issue is competing against a male. That is not fair. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We were designed by God, male and female, and we have our different attributes. We both have good attributes, but they are different. There's nothing wrong with pointing that out. Male and female are different.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Collin on this one. Do you agree that human life begins at conception? Expound if I can.
Yeah, I would try. I can't expound too much on that. Yes, I do, and it's driven by that belief's driven by my Christian faith. It's biblical. There's many verses that say that. First one that comes to mind is Jeremiah 1:5. So, yes, I believe it, and that belief is driven by faith. So, yeah.
I believe it too. And that is driven by faith, and it's also driven by science. And I think that that's something that we as conservative Republicans ought to start pointing out as well. Is if they will say that bacteria on Mars, that's life, but then we just leave it to the narrative to believe that it's just a clump of cells and tissue. That's pretty sad. And we've got to start speaking against that false narrative, then start speaking the truth about what exactly is it. Because, I mean, sometimes I'll come up to a split household and the Democrat will answer the door and they'll ask me questions along these lines, and I have heard, well, it's just a clump of cells, it's not human. And I'm speechless, because that is not true according to what the absolute truth that God says, and that's not true according to what the absolute truth of science says. Because what else is it going to be? It's like a seed is obviously a tree, and seed forms a phase of life. And it's the same with a fetus that becomes a baby, that's born, that becomes a toddler. It's a little kid that's a middle schooler, that's a teenager, that's an adult. And we've got to start treating life as life in every aspect, and not just in eliminating abortion, but also in how we think about human life as it ages. So that's yeah. Oh, and I want to say something. You have a daughter and she's in sports, and I want to thank you for being a dad that's standing up to that, because that's where fathers really need to come into play. My dad, man, I can't imagine the position that he would be in if this were the case today, to see him and how he fought, how he would fight. And so I just want to say thank you, Collin Duel, for being a dad that's stepping up.
All right, it wouldn't be an OK2A forum without some firearm questions. Don, we're starting to get nervous back there. I got the hint, Don. All right, and I think we're going to start with Karmin first on this one. Do you support legislation repealing the laws and regulations restricting the transportation, carrying, transfer, and possession of firearm suppressors?
Yes. It's repealing it, right? The
Correct.
restriction?
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
I do too. I probably put thousands of rounds through suppressed firearms in my life. I can tell you that it is not like the movies. You can't screw on your suppressor onto your 380 and your weapon's silent. You can shoot guys out of the rafters at 200 yards. That's not possible. A suppressor is a tool or accessory, whatever you want to call it, much like a sight or a light. It really doesn't make your weapon more deadly. It, if anything, probably decreases the accuracy of your firearm. But it does have useful benefits. If you don't like wearing ear protection, or maybe you can use it in combination with ear protection, you can save your ears. You can save your neighbors if you have neighbors from about 500 yards away or even a mile away. You probably annoy them if you go out blinking a lot, and if you use the suppressor, you want to annoy your neighbors. So I think it's a tool. It's not deadly. So yeah, I would support repealing any legislation that prevents us from having firearms, or excuse me, having a suppressor-free firearm.
All right, I thought I set you up with an easy question there to get you going from here. Do you support legislation and policies allowing faculty staff of K-12 schools to carry a concealed handgun with school board approval if they have a valid handgun license?
We're both we're like, yeah, let us both. Yes, absolutely. And this is a hot topic right now. You know, it's a somber topic, but I support legislation allowing the school board to determine whether or not their teachers can carry firearms in public schools. And thinking about what happened in Uvalde, I've always said that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun nearby.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. Absolutely support allowing school board to allow it.
I do too. That's going to be a lot of that. You're right, Juan. And just to kind of expound on the issue a little bit, I was talking with somebody at the door, and she said some teachers may not be comfortable with that. And what do you think about creating a volunteer veterans training program and allowing them the opportunity? Because she said we have so many in our community that after that happened, they just wanted to come up and just be there for the kids. And I've talked with a number of them too, and that's what often, you know, retired agents, they still want to serve. And so I would love to do that, and in addition to that, figure out if that's something that would be a great idea, would be welcomed by the communities, because we have so many good people, not just in this district, but in the state of Oklahoma, who want to protect the kids, have the ability to protect the kids, just need just that little bit of extra to enable them to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Our next question for Karmin to lead off. Do you support legislation and policies allowing for school sanctioned shooting sport teams and gun safety training in public schools?
I do. And my sister was in JROTC. She got to learn about some things through that. And I think you don't fix something by just eliminating it. You fix something by educating and training people. Especially, there's a narrative that has gone out that a gun is just a weapon, but it's a tool, and it can be used as a weapon. And I think that if we train kids of the right age, the safeties and the mechanism, the scenarios, and we don't try and hide them or shield them from something that's not evil but can be used for evil, then it really opens up just a more safe society in effect. So, yeah.
I support it as well. You know, I grew up hunting and shooting with my dad, and I spent a lot of time out at Silverleaf actually shooting in some of the sporting place competitions at a young age. I also got my hunter safety course license there when I don't even know how old I was. It's when it was acquired. I was young. But I think sporting plays, target shooting, is something that if we need to make it available to our youth, and having it in schools is one way to do that. I don't only support it, I also encourage it. I think it's a good idea. You're able to learn firearm discipline. I was able to look to my dad to do that, but not all kids are able to do that. Maybe they want to learn it. And even if they don't want to learn it and are somehow exposed to it, in the future they will be safe if they come upon a firearm. They will know how to clear it and make safe. And that's only something good to know. It can't backfire on you. So, yeah, I support shooting sports in schools.
Thank you. Collin, we'll let you lead off with this next one here. Do you support legislation or policies implementing a uniform complaint system administered by the Oklahoma Attorney General's Office to report criminal violations and civil rights violations by any federal, state, county, or municipal law enforcement officer by a district attorney or assistant district attorney?
It's a lot to unpack there. So a uniform complaint system for like law enforcement, wrongdoing by law enforcement, DAs, etc. I would support something like that. I certainly back our police officers, and I will never waver from that. And I think that there are a minuscule amount of law enforcement officials, district attorneys, you name it, that don't have the right heart for the position, and I think that's across the board in all industries. Attorneys, probably a higher amount of attorneys. But as far as developing a uniform complaint system, that's a way that we can weed out those bad ones that give the rest maybe a bad name. So I would support something like that, but I'll obviously back our police officers, law enforcement, etc.
I support that as well. And I think there's a larger thing that goes on with doing something like that too, is what we are up against. It's not just cancel culture, it's a cancel agenda. And censorship is there for a reason. It's to make you quiet and you inactive. And what recourse do we have right now when that happens? We have none. We have Facebook, we have social media, that's event session, but you might even be jailed in that. But we've got to start in every way we can push back on this, because The Second Amendment is a right. And every invasion of that is an invasion of something that you weren't granted, but is yours to begin with. And so at every crossroads where that comes and that's threatened, we've got to be there with the availability to push back and fight for our rights. And I think even when it comes to just the imminent threat, the discussion of it with this is something like that's kind of red flag laws, you know, it's an invasion of our rights, and it's a pressure on the people to stand down and to basically cede them to the federal government, and we can't have that. You saw what happened up in Canada with the trucker protests, right? And we're not exempt from that.
Right.
Because when you push good guys out of positions of law enforcement, of administrative agencies, DHS, hospitals, what do you have left? People who you give them an ounce of power and they're going to take it a mile. That's what happened up there. They pulled them out of the cabs and they beat them, they ran them over with horses. We're not exempt from that just because we're America.
Right.
That's headed our way if we don't push back. And I'm telling you, it actually is happening here, because I'm talking with these people that are in these positions and they're saying, Karmin, I'm getting pressured. They're targeting me because I'm a conservative, I'm a white male. And I said, yeah, thank you for standing in that. Because if you don't, the bad guys are left. And then we're at the mercy of them because they don't care about our rights.
Right.
And so, yeah. So we have got to have every available avenue for accountability and recourse whenever our individual rights are infringed, because if we don't, then they're going to get taken away. And when it comes to the Second Amendment, that's the one that ensures every other right stays in its place.
Thank you, Karmin, and we'll let Karmin get the next one. I think we got time for 2 more questions before I have our closing statements in, and you guys are doing a great job. Appreciate you. First, we'll let Karmin go with this one. It's like you saw my notes here. Extreme risk protection orders, aka red flag laws, disregard a person's right to keep and bear arms and the right of due process by compensation of legal owned firearms without a conviction. With that in mind, do you oppose all red flag laws, legislation, ordinances, and or policies?
I think I know the answer.
You know the answer like I knew the question. Yes. The thing about that is our form of government is rule of law. But what we have allowed to take place is a shift to rule by law. And it's coming through the federal agencies where they can create whatever they want with, like I said, no recourse. And these red flag laws are of that vein. They can deem whose flag for whatever reason they want, and it's also very scary because there are entities that are training their enforcement, whether it's officers or the military, it's kind of in both, from what I've heard. That symbols like the 3% sign are domestic terrorists, signs of domestic terrorism. The Don't Tread on Me flag is a sign of domestic terrorism. You go down the list, and it's now becoming a domestic. If you protest at a school board meeting, what are you now? You're a domestic terrorist, right? And so that is a mechanism, it's a weapon for them to silence you and take your guns away. And like I said, up in Canada, what's going on, they're also just going straight for it. Even 9mm, you know, they want to take them away. Which for me, that's personal, because that's what I carry as a woman who wants to be safe, you know? And these things are just so dangerous, and we cannot let the emotional manipulation pigeonhole us into, if we're not for the red flag laws, then we are against children, and you run down the line of the narrative that they try to portray us as. That's psychological warfare 101. You know, entrap your opponent to where they can't disagree or they can't agree, whichever one works out your way. And as conservatives, we have allowed them to do that to us. We've allowed them to control the narrative because What is abortion? It's murder of an innocent child in the womb, right? But they use that term to distance people from the actual consequences of what they're doing. And so these red flag laws are just another mechanism that they're using to manipulate people into giving up our rights. And frankly, it's working. And we've got to, I say it every time, you can't stop speaking the truth, and we've got to push back and push back and push back.
Amen.
Woo.
Karmin said she carries a 9mm, and I'll say this tongue in cheek because it's an OK2A crowd, but I'm sure everyone saw Joe Biden said that's a high caliber, caliber. And we all, most of us in here know that it is not. But it is evidence of how disconnected the left is when it comes to these issues. They don't even know what they're saying. But back to the red flag laws. I have absolutely against them, 100%, and they're personally upsetting because the federal government is trying to target veterans with the red flag laws and make it easier to take away firearms from veterans. So I have a personal, if I sound a little amped up, it's because I am totally against red flag laws, and it turns the Constitution upside down on its head. We have due process, and the state government, federal government, any governmental entity needs to, they have a burden of proof where they need to prove something before taking away your life, liberty, and property or rights. So here we see red flag laws circumventing due process, taking them away, and then forcing us to go and plead with the federal government, say, no, we're not, I'm sorry, my neighbor said I'm crazy, I'm not, please give me my rifle pistol back. So totally against red flag laws because they violate due process and for many other reasons, but yes, against it.
I carry a 9. Is that okay? 9? That's I got hollow points. That counts, right? All right. I think that's strong enough. All right. Final question here before we get to our closing statements here. Do you support legislation allowing those with a valid handgun license to carry a concealed handgun into the Oklahoma State Capitol? I think I know your answers, but if you have another gun thing, this is your last chance to get it in.
Am I first?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I support that legislation. It comes back to what I said. You know, the way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And then, in addition to that, if I'm a criminal and if I'm bent on committing a crime, I don't think that law is going to deter me from carrying in the Capitol. But if I am a rule follower and a good citizen, a law like that would deter me. So we would only have bad guys in the Capitol with guns and no good guys. It's common sense, it's logic. So definitely would support something like that.
I support that too. And one of the reasons that I do is because when you have beliefs like what we do, and we're getting into increasing and increasing and increasing polarized times, just look at what happened when the Roe v. Wade decision was leaked. They went to the Supreme Court justices' houses, right?
Yeah.
And so, while Oklahoma is a very conservative state, and you can say what you will about the rhinos in the legislature, I know that I'm conservative. And I know that right now my beliefs are being targeted, even in Oklahoma. And so, there are crazies out there. And they tend to protest at your house, and they tend to, follow you into bathrooms and different things like that, like what they did at Kristen Sinema when they were trying to pressure her to vote with Joe Biden. Praise the Lord, she didn't. Who would have thought we'd be hanging on by a thread by Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, right? But like I said, I'm a woman. There are physical capabilities that I don't have that men do. I talk about that whenever we discuss the transgender thing. And so, what is my last line of defense? I'm pretty fast. I was a sprinter, but somebody comes up from behind. What am I going to do, right? I don't have eyes in the back of my head. Well, I got eyes on his paper apparently, but I don't have eyes in the back of my head, And so, for me, with the climate, the political climate that we're going into, I would feel much safer being able to carry in a position that is so controversial that could touch someone's insanity, and they might come after me.
All right, that's that's the end of our Q&A. It's amazing how 15 questions can go so quick in an hour. But I just first want to say thank you to Karmin and Collin. I've heard them been knocking lots of doors the right way, and I think they should be complimented for their effort that they're putting in there, because it's a tough time to be in politics, and they put their name on the ballot, and that says a lot for these two individuals with us here tonight. Okay, we're going to let Collin go with his closing statement, and then we'll let Karmin finish us up. Thank you.
I too want to thank everybody for coming out, and it shows how much you value this process, and it's an important process to have. Frankly, I wish everybody from House District 31 would come out. It would be a good sight to see. And thanks to OK2A and Chris for you guys putting this on. When I served in the military, whether we spent a long day at the range, shooting firearms, getting tired, I'm sure many of you know how exhausting it actually can be if you're out there all day in the heat. Or you know, when we were leaving the chow hall, we were taught to leave that range or leave that chow hall, leave the place better than how you found it. Fundamentally, I believe this, and I'm hoping to earn you all's votes June 28th for the state representative spot for House District 31. I want to get elected and have the opportunity to leave Oklahoma better than how I found it. And I will do that by advancing a lot of the things that we talked about here today. That's my plan, and I always end with the ask. I hope that I can get your support and your vote June 28th in the election. Thank you, guys.
Thank you once again, OK2A. Thank you, Don Spencer, Sterling Marvin, for having a chapter in Logan County, fighting for our rights that you do. Thank you, CNN, for being here. Sorry. My question for you is, what do you want? If you want things to continue as they are, then I'm not your person. But if you want to fight, then I am. Because like I said, this is not Republican versus Democrat. That's not what it is anymore. It's the people versus the elites. And I have gone to the lengths that I have to demonstrate that I am for you and not against you. That even if we might disagree on some things, or we compete against one another, we're on the same team. And that's for America, and here in this state, it's for Oklahoma. And in this district, it's for 31. And so I'm here to tell you that that's me. I'm fighting for you and everyone else. If I can make eye contact with every single one of you to tell you that I am for you. And it's got to be us together to push back. Because what's coming is real. It's already here, and we have got to stand together in this. And I want to be someone, I want to be there with you.
Thank you, guys. Just a few notes for our audience people, also for our live streamers. If you want to register, or if you want to vote on June 20th, the last day to register to vote is tomorrow on June 3rd. So get out and register if you haven't done that already. Also, if you want to vote absentee, get that in. That deadline is also coming up. Of course, get out and vote. It's a great freedom we have, and I take pride in it. And I even make my kids go up there sometimes and make them see how it works. But that's Tuesday, June 28th. So I appreciate the OK2A for allowing me to ask the questions, and appreciate that. And with that, we'll give it back to the OK2A. Thank you so much.
No trip.
I can turn there.
Watch that cord.
Jump up I had it.
One of my favorite lines is to make a long story a little bit longer. So anyway, hey, we appreciate you all coming out. We had some good questions, some good answers. We encourage you all to get out and vote your conscience. And let's bring Oklahoma up ahead of Florida.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, this coming out, we'll see you next month, the first Thursday of the month, and we will be at the VFW.